Welcome to the Nickolas and Natali Show, where we chat with entrepreneurs, experts, and entertainers to help you live a more fulfilling life and take your business to the next level. This is part 2 of chatting with Chris Do. If you haven't listened to part 1, I recommend you pop back on over there and tune into that episode, then rejoin us here. A quick recap, Chris Do is an Emmy award-winning designer, director, CEO, and Chief Strategist of Blind, and the founder of the Futur, an online education platform with the mission of teaching 1 billion people how to make a living doing what they love. He currently serves as the chairman of the board for SPJA and as an advisor to Saleshood. This episode will be completely uninterrupted. That's right, no ads, just for you. But the deal is, you're under contract here. If we're going uninterrupted, before we dive in, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Share this episode with a friend that you'd know would like it, that they'd appreciate it. They'd say thank you, because these shares and reviews help me reach out to guests, which in turn will bring more value to you on how to live a fulfilling life. Riddle of the week: why do seagulls fly over the ocean? Stay tuned to the end of the episode to find out. That was the intro. Now here is the episode. On the flip side of fear is confidence, and you have ample experience in being the closer for sales, handling sales objections, and I've heard you talk about the concept of selling people, not the product, and that starts with confidence and ends with confidence. So how can creative business owners level up their confidence if this is the key factor to closing more deals?
I wish I had a simple answer for you, Nickolas. And if I did, I'd be a very wealthy person. There are a lot of books that are written about this, seminars given, workshops conducted. It is a very difficult thing to tell someone who inherently does not believe in their own self-worth, do not love themselves enough to then say, this is what's holding you back. So what happens in human nature is the thing that we need to do, the thing that we're supposed to do, is the thing that we're least likely to do. So for whatever reason, I grew up in a way that where both my parents worked, and I was a latchkey kid, if I'm using the terminology correctly, which is that my brother and I, once we got home from school, until about 6 or 7 p.m. at night, we were kind of just doing whatever we wanted to do. Hang out with our friends, do our homework, watch TV, whatever it is we want. So we had a lot of time to figure out who we were and not be swayed by what our parents wanted us to be. So one of the things I think about a lot, which is the damage that parents, well-intentioned parents, can do for their children, is to overexert their own operating system into their children. And this is what's happening. So if you listen to some gurus, like real gurus, mystics, they say your children have to live their life. Don't try to fix the mistakes of your past through your children. You had your shot, and I very much believe in this. So like my dad's laissez-faire, hands-off approach to raising us is actually what allowed me to be the best version of myself, which I learned later, somewhere in late teens to early 20s, is I have to learn to love myself, because a person who doesn't love themselves is very unattractive to many people. I don't mean to say, a lot of people confuse self-confidence and self-love with arrogance, and I think they're two totally different concepts that get mislabeled. And so when we see people who are arrogant, it's a real turnoff. It's a turnoff for me too. So if I'm being arrogant with you, I don't like myself either. And what arrogance is really someone who's very insecure, who is in search for validation and doesn't get it. So what they do to put themselves in a superior position is they push other people down. And what they're doing is they're outwardly flexing as hard as they can to continue to push other people down, to lift themselves up. And that is a big, big turnoff. I don't mean to say, look, if you like nice things, you can have nice things, but the way you use it, the intention behind it, one is to say, like, I love myself, I take care of myself, and I reward myself for the hard work that I do. The other intention is, I buy these things, I do these things to make sure you know your place in this world and how superior I am. It's a very different thing. And some people might say, well, there's a nuance there. It's like, it's not so nuanced to me, because every person who is arrogant, in my opinion, by my observation, is a person that's crying for help. They really are. So this began with bullies in school, and it continues on with bully billionaires that are out there who had a lot of financial success, but still do not love themselves. They're broken humans on the inside. And so when we see people exhibiting these kind of characteristics, we say to ourselves, well, if the path towards being a total jerk a-hole, an arrogant bastard, is through self-love, then I don't want to self-love. I think that's the path to the darkness. If that's what you say to yourself, well, what are you going to do? You're going to say, well, I'm not worthy of being loved. I don't know if my work is any good. It's so easy for me. Why should I charge for more? And if I don't do the job for less, someone else will. And so that starts to perpetuate a downward vicious cycle instead of a virtuous cycle that built us up. So what we have to do is we have to start with, I think, some affirmations and some gratitude thinking. So to have a gratitude mindset, something I tell people to do is on a daily basis until this becomes second nature to you where you don't have to do this anymore, is the first thing you do in the morning is you kind of write a love letter to 3 people that are important in your life or 3 things that you're grateful for. And you do the exact same thing as your last thought before you go to sleep. And you would just write it in your mind, you would say it and you would think it, and you would try to paint a very vivid picture and you would tell yourself why. Because once we start being grateful for the things that we have, for the relationships, and even for the crappy home you live in, if you just can start to appreciate that, it starts to rewire your mind for optimism, for growth, and for abundance versus scarcity. And I think that starts to rewire our inner self-talk and hopefully can start to build us up.
Wow. What's the primary benefit of moving into a mindset of abundance than scarcity? Does it allow more space for better opportunities to come in, or allow me to actually be receptive of good things so I can perform well at them? What are the benefits of that?
Well, let's just take 3 states of being: neutral, positive, and negative. So when you do something and you think to yourself negative thoughts, the likelihood of you doing that task well is going to go down. I think there's not going to be a ton of argument there, right? If you go into a race and you say, I'm going to suck, this is going to hurt, my legs are going to cramp up, I never come in first place. Well, guess what? I don't think you're going to come in first place. It's self-fulfilling. It manifests itself. And champions, whatever sport it is that you're in, and they've interviewed, and there's some science behind this. Like I listened to Radiolab and they talk to high-performing athletes. They ask them, what do you think about? And more often than not, the majority of them say, I think of greatness. I think of how dominant I'm going to be. And in a swim meet, the difference between first and second place is fractions of a second. And it's that little edge that pushes them forward because they are already seeing it. It's called visualization. There's a lot of different things. So we attune our bodies to positive thinking, to be a positive state. A challenge is not going to sound like a negative thing. It's going to sound like an opportunity. When the clients call and say, well, we have 1 day less to do this project than we thought, the negative state says, well, this sucks. I hate you. My life sucks. And you can take it on your team. You might take it on your family. It will be evident in the work that you do. Or you can say, wow, okay, this is a real challenge. Everybody, let's put our heads together. This is something that we have no control over. So let's make the best of it. And then you might invent a new tool, a new process, and you might enjoy the process a little bit better. And the client says, you know what? Thank you so much for coming through for me. I just could not believe the quality of the work that you've done, and you've made it so pleasurable. I have 10 friends I want to recommend you to. And so then they start to rewrite the patterns that we're going to see, and it builds up a new narrative and a new reality for us, which I think is the really cool part. So for me, every time I see an obstacle, it's like, how might this be an opportunity for me? How might this be a lesson that I need to learn today? And what we want to do is convert that negative energy into something very positive and constructive.
I love that. That's a great mindset to take on. Again, to, as you're saying, shape the entire world around us. We begin taking control of the narrative and seeing a different perspective through like a lens of things could actually be positive rather than bringing ourselves down. And I think we're touching here on, in the scope of mindset, our subconscious, training our subconscious. And I know that's something that you like to do, is employ your subconscious. And you use your subconscious to write speeches, solve creative problems. How can we go about making our subconscious work for us?
Okay. There's some theory behind this, and there's some new thinking that I think further supports what I'm about to tell you. There are essentially what people describe as 2 brains. Your active brain, which is what you and I are using right now. You listening to the conversation, thinking of the questions to ask, thinking about it, is my voice, the lighting, all that kind of stuff that you're preoccupied with just to survive. That's your active learning brain. And then there's the second brain, which is the brain that never forgets anything. It's all wired into your whole DNA. And every moment that you've ever experienced from the time in which you had consciousness, you've recorded and remember every experience in your life. It's the archival brain. It's the librarian to all of your life experiences. Sound, sights, touch, smell, taste, whatever it is, it remembers everything. Now, clearly, and people have said this, and there's some people who refute this, that we only use in our active brain 10% of our total potential at any one given time. It's not to say we only use 10% of our brain, but we only use 10% of parts of our brain, right? So what if we could get, 2% more? What if we can get 5% more? Because that's 50% improvement in terms of your capacity to think and to be creative and to connect divergent ideas. Well, how do we do that? We have to build a layer that allows our active brain to speak to our archival brain. And this is really important. And there's a space in our day where this happens to be the most prime for it to occur. And that is the time right after you wake up. That's the space. So a lot of people will tell you this: when you wake up, don't do anything. Don't think about anything. Just allow your active brain to recall what your archival brain has been doing. And it's been solving some problems. Now, you might wake up every single morning and say, Chris, this does not happen to me. And why is that? It's because we haven't trained ourselves. We haven't given our archival brain any instructions on how to help us. So one thing that I like to do is before going to bed, I have a conversation with myself to ask my archival brain, I need your help. I need you to solve this problem. And I'm going to think about this thing that I have not been able to solve. A client problem, a communication problem, something. And I think about that deeply. And it helps if the entire day has been spent trying to figure out the problem. So now you're priming your archival brain to go to work for you. And so then you just go to sleep and you don't think about it anymore. And you're not actively trying in your sleep state, because that's not going to give you very restful sleep. And nothing may happen or something may happen. If you're lucky like me, oftentimes when I wake up with tremendous clarity. I have a notepad next to me. And as soon as those ideas start raining in, I have to collect them ASAP because they don't last long. They're not stored in long-term memory. Now, you could wake up and nothing happens. That's okay. In your day, when you're going for a walk, when you're brushing your teeth, washing dishes, or driving to go pick up your dry cleaning, you're going to shift into this autonomic state, which is you're not exerting a lot of energy in your active brain. And that's another spot where you're going to be able to receive the gifts of your archival brain. And I've been doing this for most of my creative career now, going on, I would say about 30 years. And I never run out of ideas. I never feel like I'm not going to be able to solve the problem, because this has been a very reliable partner that I've had all my life.
Super powerful. Even when I was doing research for this episode, I employed some of those tactics because I was like, before I go to sleep, I want to know if there's any questions that I haven't written down that need to be asked. And also, I think the shower is a great place. I think there's a lot of studies about how when the water is touching your body, it gives you better ideas. And all of those things, it's almost, one, I think it's strange that it's almost like we're experiencing amnesia every time we wake up. But the other part is, it's this weird in-between of flow state when you're having lots of ideas and super focused, and also not flow state at all, where ideas are like coming in through the back of your head. But it's super powerful. It's a necessity, especially if you want to have like longevity in your career, being able to visualize things. And as entrepreneurs, we're out of a job as soon as there's no more problems to solve.
Yeah, I think it's a way for us to become superhumans. I really do. Whether you're a creative person, quote unquote, or not, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. If you're an accountant and you're thinking about a formula or an equation or a creative way to help save your clients money or to get your clients out of a jam, you can activate this part. And I think that state right after you wake up, or when you're brushing your teeth or taking a shower, when you're most at peace with yourself, when there's the least amount of noise and distraction, that archival brain can talk to you. I think that's where the magic happens. And I think it's like if everybody can train themselves to do something like this, could you just, first of all, you don't have to pay this person, and this person is you. This person has all of your ideas, all of your intelligence, and none of your weaknesses. So this is a pretty incredible creative partner to work with. And I think it's an awesome thing to unleash. Now, I've tried this before, and I've had some strange, like wonderful results. I'll tell you a pleasant one. I'll tell you a slightly unpleasant one. Okay?
Hit me.
Yeah. So I remember I was like looking for, I think it was a book or something, like a physical object. And I looked everywhere in my office, my wife's office, and I asked the kids and my wife, has anybody seen this book? It's like, it's killing me. I think I'm going crazy. I know I purchased it. I know I have it. I need to find it. And everybody's like, no, Dad, not because dare even try to look for. It's just they say no by default, right? It's like, you guys don't even know what I'm talking about. Like, whatever.
Dad, go look for it yourself. Stop bothering us.
Right? Yeah. And you know what? And my wife's like, no, I don't know. Are you sure you have this thing? I'm like, yes. Okay. So I go to sleep and I'm just bothered by it. And in my dream, I remember this very vividly. I walked throughout the house and I looked through every spot. And then I woke up in the morning and I said, oh, my dream, I found the book. And I was like, wait, did I find, you know how like sometimes you wake up and it's either a bad thing that you've done or a good thing. You're like, did that really happen?
Right.
Because it was so real.
Yeah.
Luckily, most of the times when I do bad things, I'm like, thank God I didn't show up to the office like with dirty underwear or whatever it was, right? And then I walked downstairs, went into my wife's office. Inside this large credenza that she had, I open up one of the cabinets, I reach into the back and it was right there where I dreamt it. And I pulled it out and I said, honey, come over here. She goes, what? I'm like, you know this thing I asked you? She goes, yeah, of course, that thing. I'm like, that's the thing I asked you for. And you're like, oh. I'm like, I would not be able to find this because you put this here. And she goes, whatever. And she blows me off. But it's one of these very powerful things. Like, I don't know how else to explain this, right? Because your mind doesn't forget anything. So I must have seen her put it there somewhere in my life and then just put it away. And the archival brain was able to dig that up and go through the entire house and figure this out into your memory palace. Now, I'll tell you something that isn't so pleasant. When I was 17, I had a relationship with a girl that I loved head over heels. And she was not so kind to me. It's one of like the most difficult relationships I've ever had. It was very toxic. And I had thought to myself, like, I think she's cheating on me and I can't figure it out. And she would tell me like little lies here and there. I'm like, something doesn't add up, right? And of course, I was tormented over this as a hyper-hormonal teenager with raging emotions and all that kind of stuff. In my dream, I resolved the problem and I knew how she lied to me. And then I confronted her about it and she gave me the strangest look, like, how did you know that? Because I dreamt it.
Wow. That is a superpower right there if I've ever heard of one.
We all have it. That's the cool part.
There's so much to that. I mean, there's countless studies of visualization, tapping into the subconscious in that way. They've done the studies where it's like they let the basketball players practice free throws, practice and visualize their free throws, or just visualize. And visualizing is like the key component that makes people outperform. Our subconscious is the power behind taking things to the next level. There is no greatness without like the Black Mamba mentality, right? That doesn't come from Kobe. Right. That comes from his subconscious feeding into who Kobe is.
Yes. You know, have you ever tried like a virtual reality headset before?
I have. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, have you tried one where you're walking on a steel I-beam and you look down and you have the sense of vertigo and you feel like you might die?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you know there's a headset on you. You know it's not real, yet all the emotions and the sensations that you would feel are real. So our mind cannot tell the difference between an imagined state and something that's real. And we would mostly agree with this, not everybody obviously, but practice makes perfect, right? The more you do something, the better you get at it. And so I was reading in a book and Training Your Mind, I think it was The Power of Self-Confidence by Brian Tracy, I'm not sure here, but he talked about professional golfers who were then told to visualize and dream about playing golf, just hitting it over and over and over again. Like, is this going to work? Just do it. And their golf game increases, their score improves. There is no difference. If you visualize it hard enough in your mind, there is no difference between you doing it and you thinking about it.
Yeah, I remember I used to think about, I need to get a couple extra reps in after practice. Nobody else is going to be going home and doing the mind reps, but you got to do it.
Yeah. The only time this doesn't work for me is when I design a logo. And because the way your dream state works is like, it doesn't get pinpoint down to exact forms. And so I wake up thinking, oh my God, this is a great logo. And I draw it out. I'm like, that is a terrible logo. Because now it's concrete, right? But it was an idea worth exploring at least.
Exactly. I'm curious if you've employed your subconscious on this. I heard in an interview not too long ago, one of the biggest obstacles that's standing in the way of you helping, reaching, and teaching 1 billion people is the selling and marketing in a non-predatory, non-demand, FOMO-based format. How has your strategy transformed in that way? How has your subconscious maybe helped solve that issue about selling ethically moving forward?
I haven't solved it yet. I got to tell you, because we're hiring people, and the team's responsibility is to figure that out. and the team is growing in size, hopefully by double this year. So we're looking at bringing on a whole bunch of people to help us with the marketing part, because my brain doesn't want to focus on the selling. My brain wants to focus on becoming a better teacher. And so I'm okay with taking a temporary hit. Like I look at some teachers who have online courses, and they have one course and they do $8, $10, $12 million a year. I was like, oh God, okay. And last year we did $4.5 million, just shy. And I was thinking, it's okay, because this year we'll do 9. Next year we'll do 20. And then the year after that we'll do 45. It's not about trying to get there fast or first, but it's just making sure that I practice my craft, which is to be the best teacher that I can be, talking about subjects that people really care about. And if I work on that, the rest will work itself out.
I've heard you discuss about how to be a better teacher, you have to be a better student.
Yes.
What do you fill your mind with? What influences are you constantly feeding into your noggin?
It's a balance of learning materials, and it's a combination of practice. And I think practice is probably more important to me than filling my mind with new materials. So what do I mean by that? So I got back last year from doing a series of workshops in person, and I haven't done workshops in a really long time. Even before COVID, I wasn't doing them. And so we're talking about 5-6 hours sitting in a room full of entrepreneurs, creative types, trying to solve problems. And I feel myself coming alive in ways that I haven't felt in a long time. Now, I did have this feeling when I was teaching at Art Center or Otis, because this is what we were committed to for 14 weeks at a time. But here I have 6-7 hours to work with people, and I'm listening to their problems, trying to solve it. And the resistance that I feel from the group is really where the magic's going to happen. Because if I can crack this puzzle for 6 or 7 people, I think I've created a skeleton key that opens a door for this specific problem. And I might not be able to solve it on the spot. And so again, let's go back into the dream. I'll go back, have dinner. My mind is not actively thinking about the workshop because it just happened. And I'm in a relaxed state, but I have my notebook with me, and it's running through 1,000 different things I could have said, things that I could have shared, or ways to solve it that I just was not smart enough to figure it out in real time. And then I make some notes in my notebook. I go to sleep, and next morning it's like, wait, I have an even better version of that. So it's iterating on this 55 times or whatever it is. And then I get to do a workshop again. And I arm myself with a new theory. I go in there and try and teach it a different way with the same, hopefully the conclusion I want to land at, and now have less friction and I have less pushback. And I think, oh, I'm onto something right now.
Yeah.
Right. And then I do the third workshop. And by that time, with relative succession, I was able to iterate on ideas and test them. And so by the third time, I was like, I apologize to everybody who showed up on the first 2 workshops, but I got better. I got smarter. I'm a learning machine. And I feel so alive and awakened. The expression I love to use is my brain was on fire in such a good way. It was so engaged. And so I think sometimes we can fill ourselves with so much theory and that it will sound really great. And we try to teach from a theoretical place and it lands really flat and we're not quite sure what the heck happened. So I think it's kind of important for us to take some of that theory, apply our life experience, and then work with real people to see where it breaks and to solve for it. Eventually you land at a place, if you do this enough times and your intention is to get better, that it will become something that's highly productized and something that you can teach as a system and that everyone will then be able to learn with a higher degree of success.
I love that. Getting more efficient as you go. I've heard of a quote or an idea around when you get an idea or you see a process in practice, the first thing that you should do is go try to implement it yourself.
100%.
Learn from that and then go back and study it, because then you can actually have relevancy to what you're applying it to. And that's the quickest way to get efficient at things. That's awesome. That's a really good insight.
Yeah. So what I do when I'm reading or I'm sitting in a workshop, I'm already thinking about how I'm going to apply this like right now. So I'll read something. I'll say, stop. Okay. What? I'll draw inside the book, or I'll grab my notebook and I'll try to like understand that and put it through a framework that might help other people understand and be able to achieve it without reading 35 pages, to find the simplest, most elegant way to communicate this idea and turn it into a tool. So what a lot of people don't do is they just take the notes of what they thought was important, but they haven't converted it. They're just using fewer words, which I guess is helpful. But if you can convert it or transform it into something else, it becomes so much more powerful.
Yeah. And then it becomes your own. And then you can have your style on it.
It does.
If you don't have your style on your thing, how do you know it's really yours? Hard to say.
Hard to say.
Chris, we're moving into the final question of the podcast. You made
Okay.
it. But before we do, I want to acknowledge you for all that you're doing. I got to say, researching you throughout this process has been such a joy, not only because I'm learning just through researching you, but getting to know you. Like, you have such empathy and care for people, and you combine that with knowledge and wisdom. And I don't know if anybody's ever complimented you on your temperament, but I'm going to do it right now. I think you have a wonderful blend of calmness and strength. You're able to provide feedback with gentleness that puts people at ease, doesn't give them the fight or flight of getting them in defense mode, and they can take it in. And that's so valuable. I really appreciate all that you're doing. I love your mission to connect and teach 1 billion people. They don't have to have their soul sucked doing something that they hate. It's such a valuable mission. So thanks for all that you're doing, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for acknowledging that. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Final question of the podcast is, what does it mean to live a fulfilling life?
I think if we try to figure this all out, I think it's going to boil down to a couple of things. And I'm trying to give the most universal answer. So of course it's not going to fit everybody. But I think what we're trying to pursue is a sense of do I know who I am and what it is I was meant to do on this planet? And I think it should be your singular focus is to find that one thing that you can do so well, that is so uniquely you, that you become one of one. And you're working against a very powerful system. And the system is the conditioning that you've received from ages 0 to 22, probably. The school system, your parents, your culture, your society, which mostly wants you to fit in and be a productive member and not to stand out. There's non-productive ways to stand out, which is you're going to have blue hair and scream at everybody on the street. But the kind of standing out that I'm talking about is if we look at you on multiple dimensions and we align the things that make you, you, and find a way for you to give that as a gift to the world, I think you'll have that kind of fulfillment that I'm talking about. I'm a big fan of pop culture, and there's certain themes I keep seeing reoccurring in some of the most popular pieces of cinema. And I'd like to submit a few for you to consider. Number one is a character named Neo, probably one of the greatest films ever made, my top 5 for sure, The Matrix. Neo meets a character called Morpheus, and the Wachowskis in writing the story are very intentional about how they create all the characters. Morpheus is short for metamorphosis, and so his job is to help Neo become the One, which is an anagram. Neo, if you mixed up the letters, is one, the One. And what Morpheus offers Neo is nothing more than truth, right? He offers him the blue pill and the red pill. He says, if you take one pill, you go back to this life that you've lived, and you go back to the work you've been doing. And the other thing is you wake up, and here's the part that Cypher tells him. It's Morpheus never tells us what we're going to wake up to. And now we're in a crappy ship. We're not as strong, as beautiful as we think we are, and we're eating this goop that we think is food, and they call it as food, and we're constantly on the run away from the Matrix. I didn't sign up for that. But what he offered him was the truth and allowed Neo to see himself. And he says in many instances, he's like, do you think that's air that you're breathing now, Neo? And he frees himself from the limitations that society, the Matrix, has created for him. Powerful analogs and allegory here. Powerful stuff. It's one of my favorite films of all time. Not to mention all the cinematics and the groundbreaking technology. Let's take another film. Dune. Based on Frank Herbert's writing, right? So Dune, the main character is Paul Atreides, young man, and his father, the Duke Leto Atreides of House Atreides, says to him, the sleeper must awaken, right? And then Paul, with the spice melange, becomes the Messiah, and he has powers, and it's wow. So different movie, different things, different mentors. The last one I think most people can relate to, because it's been around for so long, is George Lucas' Star Wars. There's this kid who's been a foster kid, alone in the universe, thinking that there was greatness out there for him and he wants to explore. And then he meets this old man, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and tells him about his father, tells him about this thing that he can't see, touch, or taste, or smell called the Force, and sacrifices his life so that Luke can then eventually become a Jedi Knight. And in passing, he tells Luke, use the Force. Do not trust your eyes, Luke. the computers and the machines that you use are not as good as the Force. He's able to shoot that fireball into the torpedo into the Death Star and blows it up and starts to change the trajectory of the entire universe. So what is this that we're all attracted to? These are multi-million-dollar, multi-billion-dollar franchises, right? What is going on here? Because I think all 8 billion of us on this planet are in the matrix. We're in some kind of system conditioned to believe certain ideas. What we have to do is we have to realize the truth. And the truth is, who are we meant to be? And I hope, I'm not there yet, obviously. I want to help more people find that thing, to awaken that. I want to be their Morpheus and say, here's the blue pill, here's the red pill. Can't promise you anything but the truth. And the truth is, you are a unique person. You have to figure out all the little parts of you that make you so different and to harness that into something that is going to be a gift to other people. Now, for years, I worked as a person who made commercials and music videos. I thought that was my gift. My gift in storytelling, my nerdiness in pop culture, my way to frame shots and my influences from comic books. I can frame this and make it look good and tell a story. I thought that was my gift. It wasn't. And then when I was teaching at art school, I was like, this is my gift. I love this. This fills my creative soul so much. And working with these 8 to 12 students and seeing their eyes light up and having 1 or 2 students have that breakthrough moment. And you can almost hear that click when that switch just flipped on their mind. Like, I get it now. I totally get it. I thought that was it. But that wasn't it either. It wasn't until my friend Jose Caballé invited me to go and make videos on YouTube that I didn't know it at the time. It would be the merger of all these things, these multidimensional things that I just talked about. My love for cinema, my experience in producing commercials and music videos, my, at that time, 13 years of teaching, my 20 years of running a business and being mentored by a business coach, and bringing all that together with this other wrapper of being this strange Asian guy who hopefully speaks with love and empathy, but sometimes can bring an edge to it. It makes me wholly unique, one of one. And I found my gift. And I want to help other people find that gift as well, because it lights my soul and it keeps me going. And I'm so focused on this purpose of like why I'm here.
That's powerful. I'm getting chills, Chris. You're giving me chills. People need that guidance to find the thing that sets their brain and their heart on fire, like you're mentioning. Incredible.
Doesn't need to be from me. Somebody out there is going to help you. It's just when you open yourself up to it, that person will appear. They always, that quote, right? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So maybe it's not me. Maybe it's you, Nickolas. Maybe it's someone else. Who knows? It could be a parent. It could be you read a letter from one of your ancestors and you're like, wow, this is it. They were speaking to me, and everything opens up.
Transformational moment. Chris, where can people connect with you on the internet?
I try to make it super easy to find me. I'm at the Chris Do, and Do is spelled D-O. And I'm on almost every social platform. You can also look me up on the Futur, F-U-T-U-R, no E at the end, .com, thefutur.com.
Awesome. Those links are going to be in the show notes. And I want to say this. We always say, go say hi to them. If you're listening to this right now, go subscribe to everything that he's on. It's going to be super valuable information for you. Chris, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Bye. That was the episode. You just listened to it. How great is Chris? Can I get an amen? Come on now. Raise your hands. Hallelujah. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Share this episode with a friend that you're grateful for. It'll take 5 seconds, and I know your screen time is through the roof, so it's a great use of it. And I'm on Instagram, at Nickolas Natali. Slide on my DMs. They're open. Just saying, I love to debrief these episodes, so please slide in with some lessons learned. The real reason you're still here, you want to know the answer to the riddle of the week. Why do seagulls fly over the ocean? Because if they flew over the bay, we'd call them bagels. Oh man, can't put cream cheese on those ones though, am I right? Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on Friday at 6 a.m. Be kind, be strong, be disciplined, be obsessed, get after it. Bye. Bye.